clubs will come back. And I'm a club guy, so I want clubs to come back. But what happened over the pandemic is actually our product, the workout, the exercise increased. So even though when the gyms come back 100% of what the 2019 numbers were, there's actually more people consuming our product now, which means they're both going to be here.
Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome to Masters in Fitness Business Podcast, where you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And today we're going down to Tampa, Florida, to bring you Mike Hansen. He is the CEO of Endorphins. And what is Endorphins? Well, I'm going to let Mike tell you. Well, actually, I will tell you. It's a fitness media and new age production company specifically for the fitness industry. So what does that mean? Well, I'm going to let Mike unpack that for you, but I guarantee you're going to be interested. And I have a ton of questions for Mike here. So Mike, running this company, I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me on here.
So let's unpack that. I know you've been in the industry for 23 years, but you've been operating Endorphins since 2019, right before the pandemic hit. So walk us through kind of what you guys do, what services you have, and how it works.
Yeah. So like you said, we're a fitness media and new age production company. And what that basically means is we're a company that helps fitness creators and brands kind of move into this digital era of content. And we do that across every area of content, whether that be live broadcast workouts, whether that be the traditional sort of commercial marketing videos, all the way into storytelling behind the actual instructors themselves. And we also do the event side of the business as it relates to the content. And so we're a single company to basically help brands produce all their content. When you break that down into how we do that all the way from helping with talent. We actually build complete studios I'm sitting in a studio that we're building right now. And we actually have all the technology, all of the gear and everything that one needs in order to do sort of professional production, but without the professional production price. We're built specifically for fitness. So we're built to help the creator at a price point the creator and the brand can afford.
Got it. And why fitness specifically?
So I've been in fitness, as you said, for 23 years, and it's a passion of mine. And so our mission as a company is actually to produce more endorphins in the world through fitness.
Gotcha. All right. I like it. All right. That's the name. That explains the name.
It's the name. It is actually
yes.
the name.
Yeah. So so many questions. My first question is, you guys started in 2019, right before the pandemic. I'm assuming you saw kind of hockey stick explosive growth when the pandemic hit, people, scrambling to get online. And then now that we're into the pandemic, whatever phase we're in, people are starting to come back to in-person fitness. So have you seen like a pullback on the online portion, or where do you see that settling moving forward?
Yeah, so our business has seen the most amount of growth ever, actually, in this quarter, because people are preparing for Q1 of 2022, the New Year's resolution, right? So there's a segment of brands that had dabbled in it, whether they did Zoom or whether they were doing their own little thing. And a lot of those brands that were dabbling in it, and a lot of the bigger brands, have made the decision to go all in. And so when they decided to go all in, they decided they wanted to do that with a professional partner like Endorphins. Now, on the other side of the equation is we had the ability to work with a lot of the brands that were already in the digital world prior to COVID. And so those brands that already knew and had a business there decided that they were going to move up market and do even more of an interactive production experience or more quality experiences. And so we actually are probably in more of a growth phase now than we even were during COVID. Because during COVID, people didn't know what to do. A lot of people immediately grabbed a camera. We didn't know if shutdown was 4 weeks, 6 weeks. We didn't know it was a year, right? And so there was a lot of uncertainty. So actually when COVID hit, I went to the team and I said, hey guys, I have no idea what's going to take place here. So for the first 4 to 6 weeks of the business, when COVID hit, I said, don't charge anybody anything, just help everybody. And we did that. And I said, that'll pay off for us later when people actually make educated decisions. And we're seeing the benefits of that now.
Gotcha. That makes total sense because everybody was scrambling. They were, grabbing their iPhones or even their old, handheld videos or whatever they could to get content online. But now you said people are going full in. So what do and I don't expect you to reveal any of the brands you're working with, but what is their philosophy? Are they going 100% digital? Are they doing some kind of hybrid? And if they do the hybrid, is it almost a different business than their brick and mortar? Can you answer those questions?
Yeah, so we work with a variety of markets, if you think about it. So we actually work with connected fitness brands that compete with Peloton, just as an example. We work with brands that would compete with Beachbody that are digital native and only have a digital solution. Then we work with brick and mortar brands that are going digital. And the fourth market we work with is creators. So they're all a little different. The common thing for us from a business that we serve quite well is people who have a digital first mindset. We do content in the digital world, but we also do content in the physical world because we believe there's a story to be told within the brands, right? And so to answer your question, it kind of varies from the type of customer. When we're talking about clubs, we do see people going back into the clubs and obviously utilizing that. And some of the data people are saying is like, hey, clubs are coming back. What's going to happen to digital? Well, there's one thing that I keep telling the market is, yes, clubs will come back. And I'm a club guy, so I want clubs to come back. But what happened over the pandemic is actually our product, the workout, the exercise increased. So even though when the gyms come back 100% of what the 2019 numbers were, there's actually more people consuming our product now, which means they're both going to be here. And that's what people keep talking about. It's like, oh, digital versus physical. Well, no, it's just like music. When music went digital, more people listened. When more people listened, it was a bigger market. So your numbers will naturally be the same, but the percentage of your market's actually smaller. And so I think we're going to just naturally see going forward that a digital offering or a content offering of some nature will most likely survive going forward. And there'll just be niche markets within that.
Interesting. So I know my girlfriend during the pandemic, she started doing workouts online. And now she prefers that to going to the club because it's just a little bit more time efficient for her. Because she is always doing the flight of the bumblebee. She's just got a ton of energy. But is that an anomaly, or is there like a whole new market out there that only wants digital?
There's definitely a market out there that wants digital. So before the pandemic, we had the ability to do a lot of consumer research, and we did some during the pandemic. And the reason for digital was basically broken down into a handful of jobs. Number one was there's a schedule factor still, right? If I can't make the schedule for my 6 o'clock class at the gym, then what's my option is maybe I can do 6 o'clock, 6:30 on demand as an example. There was a price element for it for sure, right? Digital is cheaper than the physical club. And then another thing that I think is really important is there's the convenience factor of I have 20 minutes. The gym is not an option because it takes me 10 to get there, right? And then the last piece that I think this digital really is opening up is gym intimidation. It was a thing, right? We knew that 40 to 60% of people were still intimidated by the gym. So to me, this was an opportunity to lower the barriers to entry to serve that. So those 4 jobs are better served by a digital solution than a brick and mortar solution. So the objective from an omni-channel perspective, from my view, is how do I meet the consumer with that job? So I can obviously fulfill, they couldn't make my class, so I give them an option to take it on demand, and then gain trust, gain the connection to slowly but surely pull them back into the gym. But you're always going to have a consumer that only has 20 minutes. As we live in a convenient world, we got to offer convenient solutions.
Interesting. So the market research you did, does it show that there are basically 2 different groups? There's, the group that wants the brick and mortar and they want to go into the gym. And then there's a group that just wants the digital. And then there's probably some overflow from both, I would imagine.
Yeah. So my macro view on the market is that the industry is unbundled. And what I mean by that is the consumer eats buffet style. They do a little bit at home. They go ride their Peloton. They go to the gym. They go to boutique, right? And so my belief is that the customer is a little bit more of a buffet eater when it comes to fitness. Now, when you look at the data relevant to pre-COVID and even post-COVID, the majority of the users of digital platforms are not members of clubs. I was just speaking last week at the Fitness Technology Summit, and Garrett from Exponential, which they have a vast variety of about 9 brands under them, and the digital summit, 80 to 90% of their brands are not members. The data we had before COVID was about 75 to 80% of the members in those platforms that had gyms attached to those platforms were not members. And so whatever the correlation is, or whether we as an industry are able to pull that group into the physical proximity of the club, number one is, are they within proximity of the club? And then number two is obviously, do I have the ability or a funnel to get them there? So that data to me points to the fact of that there is a whole other cohort of people that want that good workout from that brand they've heard things about. And for whatever reason, digital fits their lifestyle better than a brick and mortar visit.
Interesting. So it's not like if you have a brick and mortar and you start a digital fitness business, it's going to cannibalize your in-person clients. It's going to just capture another segment of the market, is what your research is telling you.
Yeah. So where the difference comes in there is that basically it depends on what your business model is. So is the business model to give it away with the membership, or is the business model to upsell? When you try to upsell somebody into digital from a physical membership, it's a very small percentage of people that are actually gravitating to it and grabbing onto it. And so the data is way bigger that the people that are buying that and that subscription are non-members. So I'm actually a big believer in give it away with your membership, bundle it with your membership, be what for those solutions when they need. Think about that as your lifetime value. You're going to have a higher uptick of people taking that membership or taking that digital solution and using it. And on the other side, I would actually use digital as potentially even top of funnel, right? Nowadays, if you do really good on your digital marketing, you can target people in specific regions and you can get them into your brand, create a connection, create trust, actually let them see the instructor, which lowers the intimidation, and you could build a funnel to potentially get them into your facility one day.
Yeah, or just keep them online too, and just have a separate, digital business, separate clients, separate demographic, all of those things.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Got it. Very interesting. Okay. So I feel like I understand kind of what you guys are seeing from a market standpoint. So let's get into like, how does it work? So I have a brick and mortar studio. I do small group personal training. If I want to jump on board with endorphins and start this, the digital component, digital business, should I be looking at this as a add-on to my brick and mortar business or separate business altogether?
That's a strategic question that we ask customers all the time of like, what is the objective and how does that tie? Is this a brand extension? Or is this a product for you, which the two can be completely different? I think the thing that we see a lot of times is that people will get into the digital market because they need to facilitate that connection. And I think there's two options. You have the person or the creator, which can use digital to go from one to one to one to some to one to many, which it's more about the connection, just using content to facilitate a connection. And on the other side, if you have a company that's in a brand or has an established brand value, is you could use it as a brand extension. And the decisions on how we approach that, from how we produce the content to what type of content we produce, varies based on that decision. And what I find happens a lot of time in our industry is a lot of times I ask people, I go, what is your brand quality on a scale of 1 to 10? And they'll be like, we're a 7 or 8 on the quality factor, right? Or we're a 3 to 4 because we're a low price provider, whatever it may be. I said, your digital content, your digital strategy, if it's a brand extension, should be identical to what it is as a brand, because it's an extension, right? And then that facilitates, do we do professional production, or do we do a Zoom type product, or what do we do from a product perspective? Because we believe in connection as a strategy. I think that this conversation here is more valuable than you watching a video of me talking on YouTube, right? And so when people go, how do I price video on demand, and how do I price live, and how do I price Zoom? Video on demand is the least priced product you do. but it's actually the one you put probably the most production value into because it's the first thing that somebody would see from a branding perspective. And they don't know who Mike is or who Jim is. And so it's more about the production value than it is the connection. And eventually they're going to get tied where they're like, I really like Jim as a person. And then it's less about the quality of the production. It's more about the connection to Jim. So when you actually talk to the consumer and you say, how do you make your purchasing decisions when it comes down to these sorts of things? Once they have a connection with the talent, they rate the talent 3-1 over the brand. So it's more about the connection than it is even the brand.
So it's about creating stars, fitness superstars, right?
Really, it is. I'm a big believer that instructors are going to rise over this next 5 to 7 years, and we always say in turning instructors into artists. If you think of the idea of an artist, and
I know Peloton's done a great job of that.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So then how do I jump on board? Because you guys are based out of Tampa. So how do I start producing digital content for my brand if I'm in St. Louis and you guys are in Tampa?
So a majority of the customers we work with, we do the studios and or the production in their specific studio or set, whatever that may be. A majority of our work is New York City, LA, because that's where a lot of talent exists. But when it comes to a situation like yourself, is we actually would most likely take the existing studio and say, how can we use this as the set, right? And how do we set up the production for whatever that production needs to be, whether that's a communication production or whether that's a high level production or whether that's just a day-to-day production. And we have the entire team from a design studio perspective, all the way to all the technical. So our value proposition is we handle the hard parts, we collaborate on the creative, and you focus on your customer. And so we have the ability to just take over all the technical and operational side of the business for somebody so they can do the rest. And the reason that's important is we've worked with talent that's on Beachbody and some of the bigger brands, right? And when they break out to go out on their own, they go out on their own and then they do it, right? And they come quickly to realize there's a lot of work that goes into it. There's a ton of moving parts. And by the time they get done and they go on camera, they're tired because they're like, I'm just stressed and tired because I didn't realize this is all the work that goes into it, versus the other way, you let the people go on camera and perform.
Got it. Well, I mean, and that's always been an issue in the fitness industry is that, do you want to be a trainer or do you want to be a business owner? Because they're two different skill sets, which is the whole theme behind this podcast. But just because you're a great trainer doesn't mean you're going to be a good business owner. And if you're not a good business owner, then you're not going to be a trainer for very long. So I like that. So do you guys, so when you bring talent, so when you bring somebody on board, they go to your studio to record everything? So you're looking at...
We normally will do it in their studio, or we'll normally do it in their location. I'd say we do that more than we do our own. I'm sitting here in a lab that we're building right now, which will be basically a fitness creator type lab model, which will allow for a space for somebody to come down to and do everything. But it's not the primary business for us. We see this as an opportunity for us to basically take what in essence could be hundreds of thousands of dollars of an investment and incrementally break that down to allow somebody to get a start. Like I said, when we started the business, we had an initial tagline built for fitness creators, because we're ultimately think that we can build this not only for the big production companies or the big guys doing production, but all the way to the bottom. And so we will have two options, but the primary option today is work within somebody's own area.
Gotcha. All right. So what do fit pros who want to jump on board the digital fitness, what do they need to know? And what do they need to do to make it work for them?
Yeah, I think to make it work, I mean, that's a kind of a loaded question, right? There's a ton of things that go into it. So let me kind of break down, I guess, what makes good content. So what makes good content is great talent. I'll be straight upfront on that. And just because somebody's a good instructor in person does not always mean they're a good instructor online, right? Some people are nervous, and that's a really tough thing to work with. So we have a talent side of the business, and we actually do training with talent and help talent get on camera ready. And the things we focus on is this: once we have the talent, We evaluate the programming, because the programming you do in person is not always the same programming you do digitally, because you got progression, you got a ton of factors that go into that. Music is a key factor to this, and there's liabilities that are more prominent in digital than it is in physical that we can't always get away with. And then we have the actual set itself, which is the experience you work within and how that looks. And then you have the technology side of the actual production, right? Like if I were to do production with my phone, or if I were to do production with all of our cameras and lights, I can make you look way better and way different by the way I light it, the cameras I use, the stuff that we do that within, right? And so those are the 5 elements that ultimately help you create really good content. And so what we try to do is we try to say, these are the ingredients. And then our value to everybody is, we're the chefs. We understand how to cook it, right? I can give you the same ingredients to make a chocolate chip cookie, but our cookie might taste different. Same thing when it comes to production. There's these 5 key elements that we're blending together to achieve that desired outcome.
Yeah, those are all great points, and very valid. Like you said, the programming, because I think a lot of trainers get caught up in the programming. And you're right, it's a subtle difference. It's a nuance. Same thing with instructors who are good live that may not be great on camera.
Yeah.
I like that. But I think the biggest hurdle that I see with the fitness industry is that, it's like you have a trainer and they have a stable of clients and they start to think, well, I can do this on my own. And then they leave and they take their stable clients with them. And
Yeah.
then, like you said, they find out that, oh, this is a lot of work that I didn't anticipate. But same thing with owners who are business people who want to make their trainers the superstars in a digital market. I think they're afraid that, well, what's to say this person isn't going to go and get their own. So do you have any suggestions on how to build your business or build your brand to not only attract talent and allow talent to shine and be the superstars they are, but to prevent anybody from, leaving the ship, leaving the tribe?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely moving into more of a creator talent sort of world in fitness, and so there's brands out there that have talent locked up in contracts, like you might think in other sort of industries. But I think we fundamentally have a flawed model in fitness. It's you pay that creator for an hour of their time to be on camera, when I think talent is understanding they are creators. They're sometimes creating the programming and delivering that, and there's IP within that. And so if I look at how some of the other industries handle that when it comes to creator and their creative, is they actually include that person in the upside of the business. Perfect example I always give people as an example is I say, look at what a record label does. A record label funds the creation of an artist's basically music. The label still makes a majority of their money and they get paid back first, but they all row in the same direction, right? They all are successful at the same time, so on and so forth. And so as an industry, we value the time they put into it versus what they put into it, when we should value what they put into it and just row the boat in the same direction.
Got it. Okay. So it's like when a big time movie star, signs on and he signs on, instead of a salary, he gets a percentage of the gross. Something along those
there's a
lines.
ton of different ways to handle that. And I think as an industry, we're still just conditioned to, here's your hour of time, right? And as the talent becomes bigger and bigger and better, you actually want them tagged onto you. Otherwise, the risk you pointed out happens. And we're a big proponent of story-based content, the behind the scenes content. Tell the story of Jim, and how he got started, and have Jim expose his story day to day. We have an internal saying, fitness is a commodity, your story is not. Like, start to tell that story. We say up to a third of your content should be story content, not workout content, because that has a way bigger draw and attraction into the consumer than one might think.
Yeah, I like that, because I think story is the most powerful way to communicate an idea. Way before there were written words, information was passed on through stories, told around the campfire or whatever. So I definitely believe in that. And then one of my mentors said, if you don't tell somebody your story, they're going to make up one for you. So let's unpack that. So what goes into like weaving the story into the brand or into the personality?
Well, so we're a big believer that everybody has a superpower. And so we try to help the talent understand what their superpower is. And a superpower is something you just have naturally within you, right?
Mhm.
And the reason why we do that is we think authenticity is a key factor. If you try to be something you're not, it's really hard to continue that. And then at the end of the day, if you're authentic and you understand your superpower, then you really just have to document your life and tell that story and document your day. Stories have chapters, stories have multiple books to them, right? And so from there, what we're doing is we're just figuring out how to position and tell that story that still is aligns with the brand. So there's a little bit of alignment and things that nature that take place. But at the end of the day, we're saying, let's take that story and then let's put it in the platform of the customer's choice. What we say is when some people come to us and they're like, well, do we do the story on Instagram? Do we do the story on Facebook? Do the story on YouTube? I say, meet the customer in their platform of choice. Not all customers are Instagram users. Not all customers are Facebook users. And then we develop the story specifically to the platform. The story is the same. It's just how you package it and deliver it and word it. And we do a lot of that through video. So,
Got it. And you guys offer a ton of services.
yeah.
So when somebody first jumps on board with you guys, where do you recommend they begin?
So number one is they got to have a plan. So I would say 95% of the time we're driving the car down the road, changing the wheels, changing the color of the car. And it's like, okay, how do we execute this? Because there's so much product market fit going on, right? And so if somebody has the ability to take a break and like do that, that's where we recommend. We're like, hey, here's a framework to the strategic questions I need you to answer. I understand they might change, but let's at least start with something. Otherwise, it becomes pretty chaotic. So that's the number one spot we start. And then ultimately, Jim, our goal is actually to produce fans with content. And so once a customer grabs onto that idea of, hey, let's focus on how do we produce fans using content, we actually start with how do we go ahead and popped up on screen. We actually go ahead and start with how do we position your product and the brand. And then we actually immediately move into what the story is. And we do those two things first and foremost, because we need a product and we need a story to market. And so a lot of times we go product marketing, product marketing, product marketing, and we're creating content with product, content with marketing. We're rotating between the two. We have about 10 different pieces of content that we look at as it relates to how do I create a fan-based relationship or a connection with the customer? How do I get their attention? I mean, I think that's the one thing as an industry and as a creator, we all got to understand is no matter who it is, whether it's Ford, Chevy, Tesla, we're all competing for consumers' attention. So you're competing for the attention. Is your product going to get their attention first and foremost, or is your story going to get their attention first and foremost? Those are the types of things we got to think through first.
And I like that. I like that having a plan. For me, it's like going to the grocery store without a grocery list. I'm going to wind up with a lot of extra shit and probably forget some stuff that I actually need.
Yep.
Because I remember when I opened my studio and I had this lady who was helping me with branding and everything. She said, well, who's your customer? And I said, well, everybody. And she's like, oh, we got some work to do. So yeah, I like that. Have a plan going in. Okay. And then you start with whatever. It depends on the person, I would guess, whatever their plan is and whatever they want to go to.
Yep.
Okay. And then how do you monetize it? Once somebody signs on board, how do you help them monetize the digital content?
Yeah. So in traditional digital, you have something called AVOD, TVOD, and SVOD. And basically what that means is a subscription model, transaction model, or an advertising model. Advertising models in fitness are pretty much kind of throw them to the side because most people don't have enough eyeballs to play the ad revenues. And then obviously the go-to has always been subscription, which is no different than an EFT membership. And so what we do from there is figure out, number one, how to price it, which has a lot to do with the brand, has a lot to do with the value, a lot of what we talked about earlier of how do I price video on demand and how do I price live and so on and so forth. We're a big believer in price the connection, not the content. So what sort of connection am I creating with the consumer? And then also what sort of results are they getting from this content in order to price that? And I can tell you the reason why I say that is a lot of people naturally just go create a video on demand library and it's $9.99 or $19.99 a month. That's one thing, right? Actually, one of the better investments that a lot of people don't talk about, if you understand your brand and you understand your product from a creator perspective, is go do an LMS. An LMS actually produces more money and what I mean by that is an LMS, a learning management system with content, is I can create these 4 to 6 week learn how to lose 10 pounds doing yoga after having a baby. I produce it once. I still can be interactive and in the conversation. I can rinse and repeat that content. It actually doesn't cost as much to create. I've done this test with creators and they make more money doing it that way than they do the subscription.
It makes total sense because then you go from a commodity to an actual product.
Right. And it's very specific. So what I always tell people is there's a certain percentage of the market when you come back to that target market question, right, which is answered in the strategy. There's a certain percentage of people that just had babies that like to do yoga. And now I can actually go target them. I can pull them in and they're going to pay me $75 for the next 6 weeks to learn how to lose 10 pounds from having a baby. Or you're going to go to them and say, do yoga, but they're filling in the rest of the blank because I had a baby, right? Or because I have this. And so it's actually not specialized. The more specialized you get, it aligns with your superpower because your story is that you lost 10 pounds doing yoga after you had a baby, right? Like they all start to come together and we start to create this story and this narrative around who you are. And then your product is also tied to that. You're a niche within a niche. You're authentic. Nobody can compete with you. Peloton can't compete with your authenticity, right? They can't compete with that storyline. And so as a creator, you got a niche within the niche.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. Okay. And then you also, and I was torn on whether or not to mention this. You're building a podcast studio, so you're going to help people build podcasts. So I feel like everybody has a podcast these days. So when it comes to podcasts, what do people need to know? Is it essentially the same? Have a plan, have a story, have a niche.
Yeah, so we're doing that more later on. If you think about the content flywheel, right? So we're starting with the story, we're starting with the product. And when I was talking about product marketing, it's obviously just another platform and another way to deliver the content and to deliver the story. It's a different form factor, right? And so we're following the same strategy as it relates. It's just another delivery. It's like, how do I deliver content on Facebook? How do I deliver content on YouTube? How do I deliver it? So it's another channel of distribution. That's how we look at it.
Got it. Okay. Got it. All right. Did I forget anything that you think that Fit Pro people need to know?
No, I think the only thing that I'd say you kind of picked up on and it came to my mind when you were talking about it is like, so I started in this industry as a fitness professional myself. I went to 24-Hour Fitness in 1998. I quickly accelerated on the fitness side of the business. It's extremely different being a Fit Pro working within a brand versus going out on your own. And I would say 70% of people are technicians that then think they can go out and do the business. You got to surround yourself with different types of people that help you grow that. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck in a job that you can't fire yourself from. That was great advice I learned one day.
Yeah, stuck in a job that you can't fire yourself from. I like that. I'm a big believer in just, and everybody that's been on this podcast that's been successful, they have coaches, right? So if I want to do something and I don't know the first thing about it, then I need to go to somebody who knows something about it so they can educate me and help me and teach me so I can learn and grow. Otherwise, I'm just, banging my head against a wall. Why isn't this working?
Yep. I'd say one of the secrets to my success too, having multiple companies in the space now has been, I probably spend at least 45 minutes to an hour every single day on education. And it could be listening to a podcast. It could be me taking a course within something I want to. And what I realized is the more I educated myself, the more I opened myself up to my mentor networks, and the more I surrounded myself with those people, the more successful I became. And there's nothing that intimidates me as it relates to like something new, because I know that I can go educate myself, and I know internally I'll always bet on myself because I got a ton of hustle and grit, and that's just part of who I am. And so if I'm educated and I have the passion, it's the training side of the equation, right? Like I can push through it and figure it out.
Yeah, I like that. And that leads perfectly into my favorite part of the show. I always end with 3 questions. And I like it because we get to peek behind the curtain of Mike and of endorphins. So my first question is, what has been your most successful failure? And by that, I mean, at the time, it seemed like a devastating loss that you weren't going to be able to recover from, but you were able to take life lessons from it that propelled you to greater success down the road.
My most successful one, I'd have to think about that because I have way too many, so it's tough to narrow down. So let me pick one. Whether it's my most successful one is I actually started placing cameras inside group fitness rooms in about 2014, 2015, right? And what I learned from that was, even though, and it's kind of like looking in the rearview mirror, even though you're like spot on, you understand what's happening, like that's a thing that takes place nowadays, right? You've got to understand the timing side. Just because you have a good idea doesn't mean that it's going to be successful. You've got to have a good idea and you got to get the timing right. And so that's something that I think has been pretty powerful for me, because I'll have this sort of like spidey sense of this idea of like, oh, this is the next thing coming. And now instead of just acting on it and chasing that shiny quarter, now I go, when's it going to happen? And when do I want to execute on that? And without me failing of being like, oh, this is going to happen. And I start, and then it's like, well, it's not happening now, but it's going to happen later. Right. That's been key. That's been really key for me, because I got this sort of, my superpowers. I have a good, my superpower, what we say internally, is I can predict the future of what's going to take place. And I've been pretty successful in the sense of like being able to be right on spot, but it's like when it happens.
Okay, gotcha. I like that. So when you say timing, you mean timing to kind of jump in and try to take it to market.
Right. You can be early. You can have the best idea out there, but if the timing's wrong and the consumer's not there and the market's not there, it doesn't matter. Like it can be tough.
Okay, I like that, because that is important. People say, "Oh, I got lucky." Well, hard work and education turns into luck. My next question is, what's been since you've been in the fitness industry, which is a good chunk of change, what has been the biggest surprise that you've had to deal with that you did not see coming?
The biggest thing, I've always had this notion of like, we needed to break down the 4 walls of fitness. Like I was like, fitness it's not a location, it's a service. Service is such and such. And I was surprised how long it took. I mean, being in the industry, technology was never adopted, and Facebook was a technology strategy back in the day, right? I mean, I was really surprised how long it's taken for the industry as a whole to adopt technology and to get to the place we are. And so I'd say that would be one of the things that was a surprise for me, because I felt like I was having to just go like push and knock on doors and just like educate the whole time. I introduced video games into the market in 2005, right? And still to this point, now you look at like the next curve in content, like that's the next thing. And it's like, I'm just surprised how long it's taken people to turn. And I think now we're at a point where it's like, now we had to turn really fast, which is kind of funny to see.
Yeah. Do you think COVID accelerated that at all?
Oh, for sure. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, when you don't have the ability to rely on being a destination, then you have to become a service. And I think as a world, we're so connected to everybody, and we're connected to products, we're connected to businesses. But as an industry, specifically gyms, like we're not very good at connecting to our members. Like I go to a gym and I sign in. You have no idea what I do. You actually don't even know when I leave. Now you kind of know when I leave if you did the COVID protocol thing. But we just need to do a better job connecting to people, and you had to use technology to connect to people.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, because that's the only way that you can kind of interact with them and nurture them and truly coach them, is through that connection. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And then my last question, you already kind of answered it earlier, is where do you go for your personal and professional development?
My personal professional development, I'm a huge podcast person. So I probably listen to podcasts more than I listen to music when I work out. Like I can still get myself in the mood and do my workout and kind of get deep into that. So I'd say that's probably my number one. And I, a lot of times will search a topic that I'm interested in, and I'll just see who's out there. So, I have kind of go-to people, but at the end of the day, I do a lot of podcasts.
Got it. All right. I like it. Mike, thanks for taking the time. You're running this business and you said you guys have experienced explosive growth. So I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you taking the time. Where can people go to find out more, get more information, sign up, all of those things, get questions answered?
Yep. So you can find us at endorphins with a Z.net. And if you want to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at mikeh@endorphins.net.
Okay. And those links will be in the show notes. Just go to trainerjim.net, click on this episode of the podcast, and all the links to contact Endorphins, and Mike will be right there. So Mike, thanks a lot, man. And enjoy that weather down in Tampa. Enjoy that Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
Are you a hockey fan?
I'm a hockey fan. I mean, you got
I think when you guys win the Stanley Cup, especially back to back, everybody in that town becomes a hockey fan.
Yeah, you got to be. And now, the little saying down here is Champa Bay, if you haven't heard that one yet. So
Okay.
that's a common thing down here. Yeah, Tampa's in a growth mode itself. I mean, we've got so many things going on down here. It's been fun.
Yeah, great. Well, enjoy the weather because it's a lot better than it is here. I can guarantee you that.
Understood.
All right, Mike, have a good day, man.
Yeah. Thank you.